Hello and welcome back to the Guns and Glory show. We're going to put a new radio in the Avalanche. These are the main audio components that are going into the Avalanche stereo. The head unit I got out of my daughter's Blazer before we sold that. My old neighbor in Waterford threw away those 10s, so I made sure to grab them right up. The 6.5s came in today. The boys had great luck with Rockford Fosgates. Tweeters showed up last week. I got those 2 amps today. I was going to go with a Kenwood amp to go with the Kenwood head unit, but they went up in price $50 a piece. I was like, nope, we're not doing that. I'm already so far into credit card debt with this truck right now, I don't know what to do. But I figured, well, this is only $32 a month, and I was already thinking about getting a debt consolidation loan for everything anyway. So I guess it doesn't matter if the pool is 8 feet or 10 feet deep. We'll figure out how to get this paid off. I've never had a late payment in my life, and I don't intend to start now. But we'll show you how to get this thing all wired in. I've already got the truck torn apart for putting the light bars in, and I don't want to take the interior apart twice, so I figured, well, now's the time to do it. Might as well get it done. Besides, living over here at my mom's house, I'm kind of bored. These are the subs for the Avalanche, just a pair of 10s in a small box so that I can put it between the seats in the back and then just put it somewhere else if somebody's got to sit there. This is a crossover, just splits the frequencies, woofer, mid-range, tweeter. We're not using those two. This is just the input. And we'll simply put some sealant on the bottom of this thing, make a pad, and stick it to the bottom. Just like that. Make the connections inside, and then that'll be it. Nuts, I don't know where I put the little screwdriver chip. Hold on. I found it. Straighten them up. I want really killer bass. I've got the Camaro, but this is better than nothing. I think I paid $55 for the pair of boxes. Crossovers were $13. First thing with this radio is to figure out where I'm going to mount all these amplifiers and stuff. I need to make sure that I can get to the controls, make sure that they can be adjusted. I got to figure out how much of this truck has to come apart in order to get the wires from point A to point B. We got to take the mid-gate glass out and fold the seats down and start taking these trim panels off to run the wires. I don't have the bolt to get the seat belt out, so we can't get them all the way out, unfortunately. But we'll do pretty well. Scoot the seat a little farther forward so that'll lay down. That one's broken. I think there's a 3D printed one online somewhere. That's how you get the mid gate down. gotten that one loose a few minutes earlier. Lost the tab. Okay, apparently they want me to take this down too. Give me a minute. I had to move the seat. There. All right. Those twos. I had this thing apart a couple of times. Turn that knob and it lets this thing go forward. Now I ought to be able to get the trim out. I do like this mid gate thing. We really should do this more often. Stuck behind that latch pretty good. Slide it out of the way because I can't get the seat belt out. I should be able to start getting wires up and down through the truck this way. That one decided to come out without much of a fight. It's always nice. Little catch down there for the seat belt. Try to keep it off the body. Okay, you need to get this little trim pad off to do most anything. They all come up the same way, all four of them. They just pop straight up and out. The trick is getting under it. You shouldn't want to break a nail, obviously. That's it. Okay, need to get this trim panel off to get to the radio and the other accessories, and to allow wires to go back and forth. So, turn the ignition on, put your brake on, and put it first. Oh yeah, put your column all the way down if it's not already, and then get behind it, just give it a little pull. They come right up. There's a hood here that tends to get a little caught up. You want to put it back. Just repeat the process. Very, very straightforward. You'll usually hit the hazards while you're doing it. When you're dealing with this panel above your knee, you'll find a 7mm screw right here. Another one right here goes in that way, both of them. You pull it back and off. There's a guide hole and then the clip, and then on the other side a guide hole and a clip for this guide pin, and then this clip here, and then over there we'll try to put this in. When you put it in, keep an eye on that parking handle. You've got to tuck it in above that and then line it up with the holes. I can't get to the other side right now, so hold on. As it turns out, this is a hard area to set up the camera and a tripod and get this to all fit. We'll do our best. Slide that seat forward and gently pop this forward, gently and firmly, after you've taken out the two skid plates. At some point, you'll probably have to take this trim panel off. You just pop it straight up. There are two clips, and then one on this side, and it'll come out. Now, the passenger side is a little bit different. I've got these two little knobbies on there that turn 90 degrees. That'll pop them up. Whether you're on the driver's side or the passenger side, this kick panel pull straight forward to get it out of there. Now there's that clip on that side, and this clip that is missing is the very same clip that they put here on the A-pillar. All right, let's get this speaker in the door. First thing, just get behind that, it just pops straight off. These little clips are on it. Pop that out. Ay. Just clips in there. Gotta take that out because there's a 7mm screw behind it. It's a short one. You don't want to put a long one in there and scratch up your glass. There's another one right down there. Pop that out of there. Screw in here. It's kind of heavy. 7mm again. I rolled down the window. Wrong button. Done. Alright. At this point, this thing should kind of pop up and out. Just like that. Bulb in the bottom. Pops out of there. And then you gotta mess around with your plugs in the back. There we go. There's a little gray lever on this thing. You gotta pop out of there in order to get it to let go. The thing I hate about a GM car is the damn electrical connectors in them. It ain't necessary to do that. Let's get that speaker out. Push down on this springy thingy. And it pops forward. And then you got another one of those General Motors wiring clips to deal with. Oh, how I hate those. Now, a lot of people will take that trim pad off where these switches are mounted and then unplug the switches. I don't like to do that because I've seen them break. Now, you want to get your speaker mounted. Make sure you're not stuck to the magnet like a razor blade when you pick it up, because that's not fun. All right, it's centered where you want it, and then all I'm trying to do at this point is scratch the paint. Moved, so let's recenter it. There we go. And I have 4 nice neat marks that I can drill those out I'll be using this little clip. It goes on the steel like that, and then the screw picks it up in the back to tighten things up. Hopefully that was within the frame. Here's a better look at one of those clips. And how they work. That'll just tighten down. Good enough. And make sure your speaker isn't where it can collect any of those metal shavings. Let's get this wire taken care of. I don't like to mess with any of the factory, I don't need that here. I don't like to mess with any of the factory wiring harnesses with a radio. Get the fucking mistake. Just watch your positives and negatives. That's your polarity from here on out. I like to use the stripe as a negative. A lot of people like to use that for a positive. I don't really care. That's cool. You take these clips and put a little bit of electrical tape on it. That'll hold it there. While you're waiting for your soldering iron to warm up, it's a good thing to do. I like to prep these ends with a little bit of solder, a little bit of puddle on there, and set that in there. And when it's ready, it'll melt. From the opposite side, touch the solder to the copper wire and let the wire melt the solder. Some people would freak for doing this, but I really don't care. I prefer to solder all these joints. So I'm going to prep that. Hope you can see that. I don't know if you can see that, so we'll come up here. That's awkward. So I just want to warm that up. Melt some solder into it from the other side. It'll say positive and negative on it somewhere. There we go. We got it close. So it basically holds itself where you want it, and then warm it up. Don't want to get on there. Doggone it. Of course I'm making a video, it's giving me a fuss. There. Now hold still, let it cool off. Put the other one up there. Same idea. Just get them both to melt. Hold it long enough to cool off. That's got it. Alright. Oops, sorry. Unplug that thing. And I ought to be able to line those holes up with those little clips already taped there so they don't come out of there. Oops. Nice. feel it start to tighten it up. Once I get all 4 of them started, I'll go ahead and tighten them all up. Don't overdo it. It's just sheet metal there. Those little clips. There. You could hear it when it snapped, it over tightened it, but it didn't feel like it. You feel for about where it snapped, the tension. You bring it right up to that point and stop if you happen to go by it. Those are in. All right, let's get this fuse holder put in. And take that cap off, don't lose it. Just put it on that line. Make sure it stays there. I suppose that one will just fit on there. That's nice. Need to strip that. Wow, this stool just about collapsed. I have to find something else to stand on. I'm going to strip that back a little bit. And shoot. I see it. It's on the frame. Alright, now you want to see if there's a collar inside. Sometimes there is, sometimes there is not. There is not in this particular case. Let's back this screw out. I like to give that a twist as it goes in there. Make sure that's seated all the way, tighten it back up. And go get that thing. Oops. Alright, I guess we'll not use the red thing. It doesn't really matter either way. But I'll take the fuse out first before you connect it up to the battery. So get that connected. I'll go ahead and pull the fuse out now. And then I just got to connect it to the main post here. Nice clean installation. I'll get some black zip ties when I get a chance. But I guess we're done under the hood. Okay, when you're in the door and you're trying to run like your speaker wire, for example, through that thing, run a coat hanger up through there. Take you a minute to get it through. And then put your wire against your coat hanger underneath a piece of heat shrink and then shrink that tubing around it. That'll hold that there while you drag that through. I couldn't really film that, but you get the idea. It works. Now this piece of artwork is coming right off the steering column. I took the electrical tape off one of these to find that. They didn't even have it soldered, it's just hanging out. It's not surprising that I can't communicate with the instrument panel through the steering column anymore. It's constant power and it's open. I gotta fix it, so I might as well use it. So one of these is going over to the dash cam and the other one's headed over for the radio head unit. Well, that's better than it was. If I've got to put some electrical tape in, I'm usually going to put zip ties over top of it to keep it there. I've got a constant and a switched going both to the radio and to the dash cam. Now we can put this blue wire in. It runs from the head unit down the side into the back, and this connects to the amplifiers. This is the wire that turns the amplifier on with the radio. I've got that remote wire along this thing down there, along the track, and then it pops up underneath that carpet there, heading behind the trim piece. I've got this wire coming across from the door speaker to the back, and this one's coming down for the tweeter. I'm going to show you how to bring these together. First thing's cut it right there along the main line between the speaker and the amp. Okay, you got one wire, you can have more room than with others. So the shorter ones, bring them together like that, and plan on bringing these in together like this. Now on this end of it, put a bigger piece of heat shrink tubing on the whole wire and split it. And put the smaller one on the positive side. That needs to be adjusted. Strip those. Give them a twist. And you can split the other two and strip those as well. That a little longer. There we go. All right, now these two that come together like this, bring your positives together and your negatives together, trying to get them crossed up. Twist that together. It's really kind of hard to work here in the floor pan area of the truck with a camera, but we'll get it done. Okay, bring those two together like that. And then pre-solder all four of those. Heat the wire from one side, put a little puddle under there to increase the surface area. And you should be using the copper to melt the solder, not the puddle of solder. You'll get some excess there. You'll get a little bit of excess. Shake it off. Don't flick it into your eye or something. That sucks. A little puddle on there. I know you're not quite at the right angle for that, but I can't help that one. Let's see, we'll try harder on this one. Fumble fingers is what I am today. All right, heat that up. And then let that draw the solder right into the wire. Check the polarity. Positive, negative, and you can take these two. Oop. Heat them up. Oop. If it does that, just warm it back up. Same thing with that one. Put a little bit more solder on the iron. You fumble fingers is what I am today. Alright. And melt those two together. Try not to leave a spike on it. That's not good enough, so we'll warm that up. More contact, that's the way. Ouch. That's done. Now if I got a little spike like that, I'll just bend it down. Like that. Just tuck it in. And then pull your heat shrink down. Let that cool off for a second or you screw up the other one. Then bring the bigger one down over both of them. There. Shrink that up. And that'll connect the tweeter to that door speaker. From here you just tuck it in. This is the tweeter for the back, and I found out that it's just about the right size to fit in toilet paper tubes, so I'll use that to trace around. And I'll cut just on the inside of that and file it out a little bigger. We're gonna put that right above the seatbelt. I just had to cut a little bit of that foam out from behind it. Just used a butter knife with a propane torch to get that out. Going through these panels is simple, but you should probably just mark that out without going through it first. Measure twice, cut once. Got the tweeters in the C-pillar panels. A little bit of JB weld to hold them there. I think they look pretty nice. Okay, we're at the back door. There's a 7mm right here. 7mm right here. Gotta pop this cover off, pop this latch off. Start by opening the window. Just watch your fabric, get behind that, just pull it, comes right up. And you can get behind this one up here, and then pop it out. It'll fall out in a minute. There'll be a wire here and one here somewhere. Now this should pop up and out now. Give you a closer look at these plugs for that little light. Just wiggle it left to the right. It'll come out. And then the light switch plug. It's just a little thing to press it down and it'll pull it out. We're in the rear passenger side. And the speaker size that is recommended for this vehicle is not the speaker size that's in the door. However, I do think there's enough meat here where I can cut that out. I wish they would cut that out. There's no excuse for that anymore. Those are 1/4 inch, by the way. I guess you don't need to watch me do all that. Just unplug it. That's your fancy Bose speaker. They paid extra money for. Not impressed. Okay, so that speaker will go in there. There's enough meat around this plastic shield to get a bigger hole in it. First thing is these plastic things have to be removed, so we'll get the die grinder and cut them out of there. I've already checked to make sure there's enough room behind the speaker for the glass and the mechanism and everything else to operate. We also have to run the wire. Alright, I'm gonna go find one of these things that works. All I was gonna do was to come up through there like that and nip those two and then nip those two off like that. The easiest way to cut through that is with a butter knife and a propane torch, and if my mom catches me doing this again, I'm in trouble, so y'all be thanking me for this. you're not going to fry anything with the end of that torch. I found out if you go from these screws right through the center at an even space, that speaker will go in there pretty well. Just take your time. You'll get through it. Be a whole lot of smoke that you don't want to be breathing. Mark it first, like I'm doing here, and then go through it and cut it out. Just go around the perimeter of that with the grinder there, and that should clean up any of that melted plastic ridge that needs to be flat. Speaker probably sit in there now. That it does. Trim off that little ridge right there and drop in there. Next thing is we should get the wire through. You typically put it right through this thing. It's supposed to be hollow, but that thing isn't a hole, it's a plug. So what I did on the other side, I'll show you in a second. I just ran a piece of that split loom through it, drilled a couple of holes. Don't hit your glass. Let's get that speaker wire in there. And then the wire loom. Leave it loose. Find out about how much you need. Clip that off. And feed that in there. That'll help keep that wire protected. Makes it look like you know what you're doing. That metal may very well be sharp. Cut yourself with it. There we go. Might as well run that right now. Since I'm sitting here looking at it, let's see. Give you a ride. was easy. Alright, you can see where I've got that split loom. The only thing in there is that speaker wire. Let's get the speaker soldered up and bolted down. The skinny one is the negative. Got that. Make sure the wire isn't going to interfere with anything in there. Pull it back a little bit. There we go. Alright. Get it centered up where you want it. And in this case, I'm going to use some self-tappers, because the clips ain't going to work. You don't necessarily want that as tight as you can get it. That's not always the right answer. I've already checked to make sure the window will go up and down on the other side of it. That ought to hold it. Okay, we need to get this lip off of here. The speaker is now bigger, and that's very likely to hit. Without a guard on this, you can really hurt yourself, by the way, but you can get in here and go around like that. It worked pretty good on the last one. I'm an anti-masker, by the way. Always have been, but this makes dust. So pardon me for looking like a Democrat for a minute. Not overdo it. Okie dokie, let's get that panel back into place. Might as well just give those a snug. There's some screws around the back side of this thing. You want to tighten them up and do it now. Just pushes in. That one goes straight in and up when it's ready. A little push downward, and then you can put these screws back in. That was neat. If you want to, you can take a piece of a black t-shirt and put it on the inside of this thing to cover up the speaker. I might do that later. Oh, there I got it. Checking the gap between the door and the panel to make sure it's seated. Put this in there first. Red part goes to the rear. Line is pinned up with that little slot. Done. I've got all 4 speaker wires and the amplifier remote wire located. Now let's run the RCA cables. This will be the RCA to go back to the subwoofer. I'd move the camera to get it down through there. And the glove box, you push that right there, it'll drop down, and you can see where I've got it behind it. Got it coming down here along the rail. Disappears under the carpet. I've got about a foot of it just in a little S-loop behind the carpet. And I've got it let out to the amplifier, which is just kind of sitting here to make sure I've got the room for it. The RCAs for the front and the rear speakers are different from that one with the sub, just because that's what I had, but it makes it easier to keep track of. Now mark either the front or the rear at both ends before you run it. That way you can tell the difference between like the front and the rear, for example, when you're done. We'll run the front and rear to this amp over here on the driver's side. I'm not happy with the floor because it's not going to let me get that all the way down on all 4 feet, but that's fine. I can't really push it back until I get it on the floor here because it's just going to congest everything back there. I don't want to turn it sideways because if I do that here and I've got it where it's solid that way, I can't get to these adjustments. So I'm going to put it here in line with that one and just kind of take the loss on that. It's annoying, but I think that'll work best. And again, I've got a little bit of extra line here wrapped around under the carpet in case I decide I want to move it later. Now I've got to finish getting these up into the dashboard behind the radio. Front and rear RCAs are in. There's a little extra loop. Stuff it right back in there. We could put the head unit in. Before we put the head unit in, I like to gather the harness that I made together with a couple of zip ties, just to clean it up. Makes it a little bit more professional, I guess. Round 2. Sorry, camera fell on that one. All right, we'll get that hot again. I was saying I'll let that set in a little puddle to increase the conductivity, or the surface area. There. We'll make a nice little ground loop. All right, put that ground loop I just made right there. Tuck that in. Put a washer on it. Yeah, that needs to not be involved with that at all. Okay, put that washer on it, and then a nut. Yep, I knew I was going to drop that. Yeah, working in these carts is fun. Aha, got it. Oops. Okay. Just tighten that down, and that's grounded. Got the head unit wired in and ready to go in. Make sure everything's tucked back nicely and doesn't get crossed up. Just put 3 screws in it, and that'll hold it. All right, it works. What a relief. If you happen to need to take this cover off, it pulls straight up and off quite hard. Because it's got those, it's like this little nut that grabs onto the threads. There. I need to hook up the tweeter wires in the C-pillars to the rear, and I don't know which one's which. Easiest way to figure that out is to grab a battery like a AA or a AAA, something small. Hook up the negative to the negative, and then touch the positive, and that turned that speaker on. So I know that that's the right rear, and this is the right front. And I will mark these with tape. Also, I'll show you a trick in a minute when I move the camera. You can figure out the polarity of your speaker using the battery if you don't know. All right, if you want to figure out your polarity of a speaker that you don't know, hook up your battery. If you've got it correct, the positive going into the positive, the speaker will move out. And if it's wrong, it'll move in. There we go, you can see a speaker push forward. We know that the positive is on this wire. Switch that around. Trying to keep that in the frame. And this will go in now. See, now you can see it's pulling its speaker in, so we know that this positive is now hooked up to the negative terminal. Once you get your speaker wires all gathered up, start making your connections like that. Tighten that up. I don't like to bring any power to the amplifier of any kind until after I get everything else hooked up. I will at that time connect the power and the ground and the remote. We got all of the corner speakers wired into the amp. We'll go wire in the subwoofer speaker side, and then I'll start running the power, the ground, and the remote. Need to make the remote connection so that the amplifier comes on with the radio. Leave myself enough slack to tuck the wire in, and since I need to go to another amplifier, I'm just going to strip it this way. Open that up like that. Strip that a little bit more. Try to be careful not to cut the wire. There we go. Yeah, I broke a couple of them. That's okay. There. Now I can take that up into that socket or whatever they call it. Tighten it up and run the other side out to the other amplifier without cutting that wire. On the subwoofer side, if you want to bridge it, your amplifier may vary, but I've got the left and right bridged and the remote wire in. Now I've got to run power and ground. It'll be necessary from time to time to remove the speaker, and I want to know which speaker goes on what side, so I put a little bit of electrical tape over the right side. I suppose if I was going to use the black one, I'd put it on the left. On these amps, you're going to need to put a negative and a positive cable on both. I'll show you how to set those up and then install it. Quite get it all the way around that. All right, we'll nick it. There we go. All right, now a piece of heat shrink. About that. You want that to be about the same length, right? Get down where I get some leverage on it. There. And then I like to crisscross it. There we go. Whoops, sorry. And for a little bit of extra oomph, just close that up, and then you can heat shrink on there. Clean it up. So I'll be making 4 of these. 2 red ones, 2 black ones. Color's up to you. Let's get this amplifier ground wire attached. You need to find a place, nice solid piece of steel that goes back to the frame, and then knock the paint off of it so that you can get a good contact on the ground. I think I'll put it right there. I'll try to stay out of your way. Take that bare steel and drill a hole through it for a nut and a bolt that attach right there. Don't forget to pull the main fuse off the battery up front before you start any of this. And always ground your amplifiers first. Good place for some Loctite, because I don't want problems for this later. Don't expect to ever have any trouble with that. All right, let's get this amp grounded. The first thing we want to do is to make sure the wire length is correct. So we figure out about where you want it. The wire is going to be neat, and then cut it off. Kind of committed to it at that point. And then I gotta find my razor blade. Hold on. I just had that thing too. You want just about 1/4 inch all the way around it. I need to get a sharper razor blade. That's the second time that thing has done that to me today. I did that to another knife too. Guess I should keep my knives a little sharper. All right, now feed that up in there as far as it goes. Make sure you don't have any metal sticking out. Double check, make sure you're on the positive side or the negative side, whichever is appropriate. Crank it down, don't overdo it. And then that. Nice. Then you can tuck the remote in after you run the main power line. Keep things nice and clean. I'm gonna shorten that about an inch, just enough to pull it away from that bar. All right, I got these amplifiers all wired up. Nice and neat. It's basically ready to switch it on, plug in the subwoofer boxes, and tune it. Well, I've got the Avalanche radio finished. Looks great. Tomorrow when I get this thing cleaned up and tuned up, it'll sound great. It's been a long one. Take care, guys.